Now this part right over here, this is worth the cost of the book alone. I'm a big fan of this part, and one of the reasons why I am a big fan is because hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today I've got a book review for you, and it's none other than Coach Greg Doucette's training book, Harder Than Last Time. But before I start, you guys know the drill. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, ding ding ding. And if you don't want to watch the entire video, I will be including timestamps in the description so you can skip ahead to the section that you want. Now onto the topic at hand. It's been a while since I have reviewed a training book. In fact, I believe the last training book that I reviewed was about 5 years ago, and it was Coach Charles Poliquin's The Poliquin Principles. Side note, really great book. If you haven't read it, go ahead, check it out because you can learn a lot from that book. But anyway, I decided to review Coach Greg's book because it is close to Christmas. It's about 10 days away. So if you are looking for a last minute Christmas gift for somebody else, or if you want to just treat yourself to a Christmas gift, or New Year's is coming up, if you are one of the millions of people who are going to be making New Year's resolutions to either lose fat or build muscle, then this is the perfect time to decide whether or not you want to purchase this book. Now, with regard to the book, I'm going to be going through some of the information in it, but all of the images that I'm going to be sharing are found on Greg Doucette's actual channel. He says a lot of this. I'm not going to be sharing any of the actual programs. So if you were hoping to watch this video that I would just give you the exercises and the exact programs that he has in the book, tough luck. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm just going to be sharing my thoughts on the book. What exactly do I like about it? What are the things that I don't like? And then at the very end, I'm going to explain who exactly this book is for and who should buy it and who it is not for and who would not benefit it from. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. First, let's go ahead and take a look at the table of contents. If we look, we can see that there's the whole health and legal disclaimer, an introduction section, mindset, cardio, diet, weight training, and then this is the meat of the book where most people are going to be interested in. These are the different plans. There is casual plans, moderate plans, and hardcore plans, and there are 4 training plans for each of those different types of individuals. And the first thing that I want to discuss is the section on mindset, particularly the part about motivation. When it comes to this section, the first thing that Greg states is, a common question I get from my clients is, Coach Greg, how do I stay motivated? And then he states, motivation is automatic. We are motivated to do the things we love. Now, with regard to this point right over here, I actually made a video about this called intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation and how to balance them. I'm going to include a link right up over here if you are interested in checking that out. But basically, when it comes to motivation being automatic, this is true when we are children. When we are children, we have intrinsic motivation. And what that means is we are motivated just because we truly want to be able to discover different things. When we are exploring the world around us, nobody is telling us to do so. We just want to do it because we genuinely are curious as children and we want to explore the world. So that is what is referred to as intrinsic motivation. And that is automatic because if you have intrinsic motivation, that is the type of motivation where you are self-motivated. Whereas extrinsic motivation revolves external factors. So let's say when it comes to fat loss, if you truly want to go to the gym and you truly enjoy going to the gym and you enjoy seeing the benefits, that would be intrinsic motivation. But if you hate going and the only reason you're going is because you have a friend that is kind of pushing you along and they are able to motivate you to go to the gym, that would be extrinsic motivation because you're not going because you want to go for yourself. You're going because you have a friend that is able to push you. So with regard to we are motivated to do the things we love, yes, but with motivation being automatic, that is true for intrinsic motivation, but it's not true for extrinsic motivation. But that's besides the point. That's not what this book is about, but it is something that I wanted to touch on because if you are the type of person who lacks motivation, then trying to figure out some form of extrinsic motivation would benefit you when it comes to joining the gym. Because if you don't have that intrinsic motivation that you truly want to go and that drive to work out, you're going to need some form of extrinsic motivation in order to motivate you to go to the gym until it becomes intrinsic motivation. But anyway, let's go on to the next section. The next part is gym-timidation. And with regard to gym-timidation, Greg states, it's not uncommon for clients to tell me they feel intimidated by the idea of going to the gym, especially for many older folks, some women, and younger boys. Maybe you've never set foot in a gym, maybe you're worried about being judged for not having the perfect gym body, or for not knowing what you're doing in there and are worried that you'll look like a moron. Maybe you'll tell yourself, oh, I need to get in shape before I go to the gym, but that makes zero sense. Now, with regard to gym-timidation, I actually made a video a couple weeks ago and it was called Overcoming Anxiety at the Gym. I'm going to include a link right up over here. But a few things, if you are the type of person that are afraid to go to the gym because you're afraid that people are going to judge you and and you suffer from social anxiety, a few things that you can do that will help to overcome your social anxiety and make going to the gym a little bit easier. Number one, you want to pick a consistent time to go to the gym. The reason this is going to be beneficial is because if you choose a consistent time and stick to that time every single day, then most people tend to go to the gym at the same time. So by picking a time and sticking to that time, you're going to see the same faces over and over again. And as you see those same faces over and over, you're going to develop some type of familiarity with them, and it's going to make you more comfortable. So if seeing new people and going to the gym is going to make you very, very anxious, then pick the same day, because that will help, because you're going to see the same people over and over again. And by seeing them over and over, you will feel more comfortable, and it's going to ease your mind the next time that you go to the gym. Another thing that you could do is go with a friend, because if you have with a friend, again, your friend is familiar to you. So you are going to be more comfortable if you have somebody that you know and trust going with you to the gym. Those are just a couple of things that you could do to overcome anxiety. If you want some more tips, you could go ahead and check out the video that I just mentioned a couple minutes ago. But anyway, let's go on to the next point, and that is with regard to consistency. Now, with regard to consistency, Coach Greg says, my approach to training revolves around building sustainable plans that you can do for a very long time. You need to be able to swap out exercises when you are getting bored and or start to feel injured so that you can keep having fun in the gym. If the gym is not fun for you, then you will stop showing up, and we don't want that. This is a great point, and it is absolutely true, and it's something that I preach with all my clients, especially the ones that train at home. If they think that they need to do particular exercises in order to achieve results, then a lot of times, if those exercises are not exercises that they enjoy, it can demotivate them and cause them to quit. A few months ago, I had made a video about picking the exercises that you enjoy and how it's more beneficial to do that. And I used the example of squats. Me personally, I love to squat, so I incorporate squats into my routine. But if you're the type of person who hates squats and you enjoy doing things like leg extension and hamstring curls, leg extensions and hamstring curls are not going to be as effective at building muscle and burning fat than squats. However, if those exercises, you actually enjoy them and they are going to motivate you to go to the gym and do them, and doing squats is going to be a deterrent, and after a month you're going to quit the gym because you hate squats so much, then at the end of the day, those knee extensions and hamstring curls are going to be more effective than a squat, because at the end of the day, if you're doing two exercises is going to be more effective and more beneficial than one great exercise that you do not do. So at the end of the day, you want to be able to pick exercises that you enjoy, because if you enjoy your workout and the exercises that you are doing, it is going to make it much easier for you to be consistent in the gym. Now, the next point is with regard to realistic expectations, and Coach Greg says, something that drives me insane is when clients come to me expecting to gain 20 pounds of muscle in 6 months and get mad when I give them the honest truth. Lower your expectations, people. Now, this is another great point, and this is something, I've been doing this professionally for over 16 years now, and a lot of times, especially early on in my career, people would come to me with the most ridiculous expectations. I remember this was back in, I believe it was around 2010, because it was one of the first big commercial gyms that I ever worked for, and I had this woman, she was severely overweight, and she wanted to lose 100 pounds. And when I asked her time frame, what her goal was, and how exactly she wanted to achieve that, she said that she wanted to lose 100 pounds in 3 months. And right away, off the top of my head, I was like, that's never going to happen. Even if you're on The Biggest Loser, that's an unrealistic amount to lose in 3 months. Most people, they will watch that show and they will think, oh, they lost 100 pounds in 1 month, so I can do it too. What they don't realize is that they end up starving those individuals, and they make them train 3 times a day. And what they do in that house, they are completely isolated from the real world. All of their food is provided for them. And for the average person, you don't have all your food provided for you. You have all of these distractions. You have work obligations. To be able to expect to get the same results from people that are isolated and dedicating 24 hours a day to losing weight is unrealistic. So if you think that you are going to lose 100 pounds within a few months, that's not realistic. What is a realistic goal? Well, something that would be more realistic, this is what I preach with my clients, is 0.5% to 1% of your total body weight lost per week. So let's say you are a 200 pound individual. Well, 0.5% of 200 pounds is 1 pound, and 1% of 200 pounds is 2 pounds. So if you are a 200 pound individual, losing anywhere from 1 pound to 2 pounds per week is a good goal to have. 1 pound is going to be very, very manageable. It's going to be pretty easy for you to accomplish that. 2 pounds per week, it's going to require a little bit more effort, but still, it's going to be very, very manageable. So set realistic expectations. I cannot agree with that point anymore. I'm going to give one more example. I had this one person, I believe this was about 2-3 years ago. I think it was 2017 or 18. And he showed me the Wolverine workout that he got on bodybuilding.com. And he told me that he wanted to look like Wolverine from Days of Future Past. Now, one of the things with regard to this kid was 5'4", 130 pounds, and he was over 30% body fat. At those statistics, that means he had roughly 91 pounds of lean mass and 39 pounds of fat mass. Now, if we take a look at Hugh Jackman, who played Wolverine, in Days of Future Past, he's 6'2", and he was roughly 220 to 225 pounds. So at 225, 10% body fat, that means that he had roughly 202.5 pounds of lean mass and 22.5 pounds of fat mass. And his BMI was 28.9. Now, BMI is a terrible metric, but I'm going to be using it for this example because it is going to be relevant because he wanted to look that way. So in order to look that way, you need to have the same mass on your frame relative to your height. So for him to achieve that look, he would need a BMI of 28.9. For him, he would have needed to get to 168 pounds at 10%. So he would have needed 151.2 pounds of lean mass and 16.8 pounds of fat mass. That meant that he would have needed to gain 60.2 pounds of lean mass. And when he told me his goal of him wanting to look like Hugh Jackman, the Wolverine character in Days of Future Past, he said that he wanted to achieve that in 3 months. The idea that you can put on 60.2 pounds of lean mass in 3 months is ridiculous. It is impossible. You could take all the steroids in the world. You could have the greatest training program. You could have the greatest genetics. You're not going to put on 60 pounds of lean mass in 3 months. So I was very honest with him. I told him it is going to take you at least 7 years, and that's assuming you have great genetics. This kid did not have very good genetics. He never would have been able to get there. But if he did, it would have taken 7 years, not 3 months. But anyway, let's go ahead. Coach Greg, he actually states what is realistic, and he has a chart, and he has right over here. 1 year, 8 to 12 pounds, 2 years, 6 to 8. He goes through all of these numbers in another video. I'm not going to go through them all, but I will include a picture. But the reason I'm showing you this chart is because when I told him 7 years, let's see if Coach Greg's math kind of adds up with mine. Well, what can Coach Greg expect in 7 years? If we add up 8 plus 6 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, that is what you can expect on the low end, and that would be roughly 27 pounds of muscle. On the high end, 12 plus 8 plus 6 plus 5 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, that is going to equate to 41 pounds of muscle. So in 7 years, according to Coach Greg, anywhere from 27 to 41 pounds of muscle is going to be realistic. Now, the one thing I'm confused about with this chart, he never really specified if he's talking about actual skeletal muscle or if he's talking about lean mass, because lean mass is going to be predominantly water. You have water, bones, tendons, ligaments, organs, all of that stuff is considered lean mass. So 27 to 41 pounds, I'm assuming that he means actual skeletal muscle tissue. So once you've drained it of its water and everything else, you subtract bone weight and all that. I'm assuming that's what he means. But if that's what he means, then if we were to take the 60.2 pounds, less than half of that is going to be actual contractile tissue. The rest of it is going to be water, bones, tendons, ligaments, and organs. But anyway, let's go on now to the next part, and this is all about cardio. With regard to cardio, Coach Greg states the health benefits of cardio, and he says cardiovascular fitness should not be overlooked. Adding a little cardio to your week will help shed fat, increase your cardiovascular health, and boost your overall mood and well-being while making you less vulnerable to injuries. I agree with everything that he says right there. It'll absolutely do all of that stuff. However, one of the things with regard to cardiovascular work, me, myself, even though there are benefits to cardio, I do not enjoy it, so I do not do it. A lot of the cardiovascular work that I get comes from my weight training. One of the things with regard to cardiovascular work is a lot of people tend to think that cardiovascular work is things like running on the treadmill, doing a bike, swimming. However, cardiovascular work, if you were to break down cardiovascular, we have cardi, which means heart, and then vascular, which means blood vessels, so blood flow. So any type of activity that you do that increases your heart or strengthens your heart and increases blood flow is going to be considered cardiovascular exercise. So technically, any exercise that you do is cardiovascular exercise. However, when most people talk about cardiovascular exercise, they are referring to aerobic exercise. We have aerobic exercise and anaerobic. Aerobic requires oxygen, anaerobic does not. So Coach Greg, when he is talking about cardiovascular exercise, really what he's talking about is aerobic, because weight training is a form of cardiovascular exercise, because when you weight train, you're strengthening your heart. And if you don't believe me, trust me, come do a strongman workout or a powerlifting workout with me. I guarantee you, after one set, you're going to be huffing and puffing and your heart is going to be pounding. But anyway, let's go on to the next point on cardio. Coach Greg also says, just because you are lifting weights does not mean you can skip cardio. They are different things. They are both equally important important for living a healthy lifestyle and achieving optimal fitness goals. Don't skip cardio. This is where I disagree with him. I think that if you enjoy doing it, yes, do it. It is going to speed up the process. If you're trying to lose fat, it's definitely going to speed up that process. However, if you don't enjoy it, it's not really gonna be something that you need to do. And I am emphasizing the word need, because whether or not you should do it is going to come down to personal preference. Me personally, I don't enjoy doing cardio, so I don't do it. The only time I've done it in the last 10 years was in 2017 when I was really into rock climbing. My endurance wasn't that great, so I was incorporating a lot more strength endurance training into my program and doing things like skipping rope. But aside from that, over the course of the last 10 years, I never really did any cardiovascular exercise just because I didn't like it. And I'm still able to achieve a pretty lean look. This is me right over here at the beginning of the year when I was roughly 6 to 8% body fat, was doing zero cardio work whatsoever. And this is me right now pretty much. I'm usually hovering between 10 to 12% body fat. My body fat right now, it's a little bit higher because I've been on a little bit of a binge when it comes to eating, but I'm able to maintain a relatively lean look without doing any cardiovascular work. And in terms of my cardiovascular health, my endurance, definitely not the greatest right now because I'm not training for endurance, but in terms of my resting heart rate is 43 beats per minute. And you may be thinking, how the hell is your heart rate 43 beats per minute if you don't do any cardio? Well, trust me, again, if you are doing strongman training or powerlifting, when you are training in that high intensity, you are going to be huffing and puffing and your heart is going to get a real good workout. So with regard to cardiovascular exercise, do you need to do it? No, you don't need to do it. Is it going to be beneficial? Yeah, it's going to be beneficial. If you're trying to lose fat, improve your cardiovascular health, it will help. So that's pretty much my takeaway from that point. And with regard to Coach Greg's recommendations, he says 150 minutes of moderate intensity, steady state cardio per week is a good starting point for most of my clients. You don't need to go higher than that unless you need to for competitive purposes. It is also a great way to greatly improve your cardiovascular fitness. So with regard to this recommendation over here, this is pretty much on par with what is recommended by all of the major organizations. And just a quick side note, I actually forgot to mention this, but I actually made a video called Coach Greg Doucette is Wrong. I'll include a link right up over here. And I explained why exactly you don't need to do cardio, but while you should, if it is something that you enjoy. But that basically goes over in more detail what I was just explaining to you a couple minutes ago. But on to the next point that Greg makes. He's talking about which kind of cardio should you do. And he states, the best type of cardio to pair with your lifting routine is one that allows you to improve your heart health, but also does not damage your joints. For this reason, my preferred style of cardio that I recommend to my clients is incline treadmill walking at 50% incline. It is low impact while still challenging you. This means that it has very low chance of damaging your joints and making you too beat up to still be able to lift weights. Now, with regard to this point right over here, if you are going to do some type of cardio, especially if you're severely overweight, walking is going to be better than running. And walking outdoors and running outdoors is going to be better than the treadmill. I actually made a video months back and it was called Top 10 Reasons to Avoid the Treadmill. I'll include a link right up over here if you want to check that out. But in that video, I brought up a few points. One of them is the ground reaction forces that occur when you are running. Basically, when you run, anywhere from 3 to 8 times of ground reaction forces are going to be traveling up your kinetic chain. That is 3 to 8 times of your body weight traveling through your ankle, your knee, your hip. So if you are somebody that has a lot of joint pain, then you definitely wouldn't want to be running, and walking would be preferable, because let's say you are 500 pounds. At 3 to 8 times your body weight, that 500-pound individual is going to have anywhere from 1,500 pounds all the way to 4,000 pounds traveling through their ankle, knee, and hip in ground reaction forces. So if you do have joint pain, that could be incredibly detrimental and it could damage your joints, which is why it is not going to be beneficial to run if you are that heavy, and walking would be preferable. Now, another thing with regard to the treadmill, one of the reasons why I don't like the treadmill is because it can exacerbate symptoms of postural dysfunction. Basically, when you run on a treadmill, your body does not really have to use its hip extensors. You're overactivating your hip flexors and your knee extensors, and you are underactivating your hip extensors and your knee flexors, because when you are running on a treadmill, the belt, it is going to kick your legs back for you. You don't have to actually use your hip and knee your hip extensors and your knee flexors. So what's going to happen is your hip flexors and your knee extensors are going to become overdeveloped, and then those are going to become tight, and then your hamstrings, your gluteal muscles, those are going to become underdeveloped and they're going to become taut. When muscles become taut, a lot of people will confuse this for tightness, and what's going to happen is they're going to stretch their muscles, such as their hamstrings and their glutes, and this is going to exacerbate the postural dysfunction, because if you stretch a taut muscle, it is going to become more taut over time. And if you want to truly correct a postural imbalance, you need to strengthen a taut muscle and stretch a tight muscle. So if you are running on the treadmill, this would not be ideal, and it would be better to run on the actual solid ground. If you have normal weight, your running efficiency is really good, and it's something that you enjoy to do. Is it going to be incredibly detrimental if you run on the treadmill? Well, it's going to depend on how often you do it. If you're running on the treadmill and you're not actively working to correct the postural imbalance, then it's going to be detrimental because it is going to exacerbate all your symptoms of postural dysfunction. So if you are going to run on the treadmill, be aware of that and definitely incorporate some corrective exercises based off of the length-tension relationships in your body. But anyway, let's go on to the next point. Aside from cardio, he also talks about what type of pace you should go. What pace should you go at? Regardless of which type of exercise you choose for cardio, start slow to keep a consistent pace. It doesn't matter if you start at only 2 kilometers per hour on the treadmill. With time and consistency, you will work your way up to being a better butter burner by increasing your speed over time. This is another thing that I absolutely agree with. If you are going to do any type of cardiovascular exercise, and not only cardiovascular, but this also holds true for weight training, you want to start slow and build yourself up. This is the concept of progressive overload. Basically, when you are training, what you want to do if you want to see results is every single workout, you should aim to be better than you did the last time. As Coach Greg says, you want to train harder than last time. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, with regard to cardiovascular work, the way that you can measure if you are training harder than last time, 1 is going to be the speed, 2 is going to be the inclination if you are using a treadmill. So there are a few ways that you can monitor if you are improving with your cardiovascular work. With regard to weights, you could increase the number of reps, you could increase the number of sets, you could increase the intensity, which is going to be your percentage of your 1 repetition maximum, you could increase your training volume. There are many ways to do progressive overload, but the key takeaway is if you want to improve, you need to progressively overload your workout program, or you are going to stall and hit a plateau. Now, the next thing that Greg talks about with regard to cardio is with regard to planning your actual cardio days. He says, first, plan out how many days a week you will be lifting weights. This is important to do because you will need to warm up with 10 minutes of moderate intensity cardio for those sessions. This is something that I disagree with. Generally, if you are going to do cardio, it is going to be more beneficial at the end of your workout. If you are going to be warming up with cardio, it's not going to be effective for a couple reasons. 1, it's not specific to the task that you are doing. The whole point of doing a warm-up is to prepare yourself for the workout that is going to follow. So let's say you are doing a push-pull day for your workout, and your workout is going to include bench press and chin-ups. Well, if you're running on the treadmill, there's no direct correlation between the treadmill and doing things like bench pressing and chin-ups. So rather than doing a warm-up with cardiovascular work, you would be much better off doing lower intensity versions of the exercises that you are performing. What I mean by that is you do warm-up sets. So if you're doing bench press for sets of 12, do a very lightweight for a set of 12, then gradually increase it, and eventually do 2 to 3 warm-up sets and then build up to your actual working sets. Your working sets are going to be the weight that you actually use for your actual lifting program. But cardio, it's going to be better at the end. Another reason why cardio is better at the end is because if you waste all of your energy at the beginning, then this is going to be counterproductive to your goal if it is your goal to build muscle, because first things first, if it's your goal to build muscle, then your weight training should come first. If it is your goal to burn fat, then at the end of the day, if you enjoy doing cardio, then you can do it at the beginning, you could do it at the end. If you're not too concerned with building muscle, then it's not really going to be too much of a detriment to you. But if it is your main objective to build muscle, it would be better to do your cardiovascular work at the end of your training session. Now, next thing with regard to cardiovascular work is fasted cardio, and Greg states, doing fasted cardio on an empty stomach is not better in any way. You don't burn more calories, you won't get more shredded. Absolutely true. There's no scientific evidence that shows that there is any benefit to doing fasted cardio as opposed to fed cardio. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to personal preference. And Greg also says, you may in fact burn fewer calories doing fasted cardio because you are in a depleted state. This is because you will train easier than last time since you have less energy from being fasted. Now, with regard to fasted versus fed cardio, again, as I stated, this is going to come down to personal preference. One of the things with regard to fed versus fasted is if you are the type of person where you need food in your system first thing in the morning to have energy, then you are going to burn more calories in a fed state because you're going to have more energy and your running is going to be more efficient. If you're the type of person where you do not enjoy eating first thing in the morning because you feel like it slows you down, and if you consume a meal, it is not going to make your running efficient, then do your fasted cardio, because at the end of the day, if you have more energy on an empty stomach and you're able to do your cardio more effective and efficiently, then fasted cardio is going to burn more calories. But in terms of if you have the same individual, if they are running the same distance at the same speed over the same amount of time, it doesn't matter if they are in a fed state or a fasted state, the amount of calories burned is going to be the exact same. Actually, that's not true. If you are in a fed state and you travel the exact same distance over the same amount of time, traveling the same speed, The fed person is actually going to burn more calories because guess what? The more mass you move, the more calories you burn. So if you consume 2 pounds worth of food, that's 2 more pounds that you are running with throughout your body. So you're actually going to burn more calories in a fed state because you are going to be moving 2 pounds more throughout your run. But if everything else is the same, if weight is the same, distance is the same, speed is the same, then there's no difference between fasted and fed cardio because you're going to burn the exact same amount of calories. Now, next I'm going to get into the diet section of the book. This is a very short section. It is a page and a couple of lines, and the reason is this is a training book. It is not a nutrition book. If you want nutrition advice, you could buy his cookbook or you could just go on YouTube and watch his videos. But with regard to the diet section, he basically just says, most people want to lose body fat and gain muscle. In order to do this, you need to be in a calorie deficit. Simply put, this means you need to burn more calories than you eat. Now, absolutely, that is 100% true. If you want to lose weight, you need to be in a caloric deficit. There's no way around that. If you're in a caloric deficit, you're going to lose weight. If you're in a caloric surplus, you're going to gain weight. And if the amount of calories that you take in is equal to that of your total daily energy expenditure, your weight is going to stay exactly the same. Now, one of the things with regard to being in a caloric deficit is there are several ways that you can achieve this. 1 is by eating less food, 2 is by exercising more, and then 3, this is going to be the most effective strategy, and it is by doing a combination of the 2. Eat less and move more. But that's pretty much the nutrition in a nutshell. Next, we are going to get into the weight training section. For the weight training section, the first thing that he states is the health benefits of weight training. And he says, here's some other benefits of weight training that you may not know about. More muscle equals more calories burned in a day. Want to be able to eat more food and not get fat? Gain as much muscle as your genetics will let you. This is partly true. Yes, if you build muscle, that muscle is going to burn calories, but you can't just eat as much as you want and not gain weight. At the end of the day, again, if you are in a caloric surplus, it doesn't matter if you have 500 pounds of muscle on your frame. If you're in a caloric surplus, you're going to gain fat. But the point that he makes is absolutely true. Muscle is going to burn fat. One of the things with regard to this point over here is a lot of people will overestimate the amount of calories that muscle burns. A lot of people, this is a myth. They think that muscle is going to burn 50 calories per day. So if you put on 10 pounds of muscle, you're going to burn an additional 500 calories a day at rest, which means you're going to lose an extra pound of fat per week. And the truth is, there is no scientific evidence to support that claim. In fact, 1 pound of muscle is really going to burn only about 6 to 10 calories. So while it is not 50, it does still burn calories much more than fat. Fat only burns about 2 to 3 calories at rest, but you are going to burn more calories by putting on more muscle. So if you are trying to lose fat, then building muscle is going to be a very effective strategy at helping you to achieve that goal, because the more muscle that you put on, the more calories your body is going to be able to burn. Again, though, do not get caught up into that lie of thinking that 1 pound of muscle is going to burn 50 calories at rest, because it is absolutely fake. It is basically a selling tool that personal trainers will use to try and con you into selling their training program. But anyway, let's move on to the next point. He also gives training plan instructions. With regard to the training plan instructions, I've seen a lot of criticisms online, and I feel like a lot of people that are criticizing have not actually read the book, because if they read the book, a lot of the criticisms are in the training plan instructions. I feel like a lot of people just skipped ahead to the actual workout plans, and that is why they believe all of the things that I'm going to tell you. But one of the common criticisms that I see is that there's no periodization in this program. But under the training plan instructions, there is actually a section on periodization, and it says, if your goal is to get as strong as possible, you should start with a hypertrophy template for a long period of time, say 5 to 6 months, and then follow that with a strength program for a while. Then, when your lifts are not getting any stronger, return to the hypertrophy template for a while, and then resume with a strength template. So in terms of the periodization, he's not very specific with his guidelines, but this is meant for beginners and intermediates. He's not going to write an entire book on periodization because there's already textbooks on that. If you want to watch videos on periodization, they're already available. This is specifically for beginners and intermediates. So the whole idea of periodization, yes, it's beneficial to know. You should look into it. But for the purposes of this book, it's not really something that makes sense. And it's not something that is going to be a huge deterrent of whether or not you want to buy this book. If you do need a book on periodization, Tudor Bompa has a great book. It's called Periodization. But for the purposes of this book, most people are going to be buying it for the training routines. I doubt many people are going to be buying it for the periodization aspect. Now, another thing that people complain about is that there are no tempo recommendations. Again, this is right from the book. The eccentric part of the lift should be half the speed of the concentric. As a general rule, go for 2 seconds down, which is the eccentric portion, and 1 second up, or the concentric, with a 1 second pause in the peak contracted position, such as in the whole of squat or at your chest during a bench press, if possible. Do not pump out reps as fast as possible. This is something that I agree with as well. A lot of people at the gym, they will just bust out reps as fast as they possibly can without any control or any intention when they are doing the movement. And the truth is, the pause, the eccentric, the concentric, depending on what your goal, each one of those phases of the lift are going to be very important. The eccentric phase, as an example, when you are doing slower eccentric training, that is going to yield greater strength gain. So if it is your goal to be as strong as possible, you would want to focus more on eccentric training, because by focusing more on eccentrics, it is going to help you build more strength. Another thing is going to be with regard to the pause. With regard to the pause, there are 2 pauses during a lift. You have the bottom pause, and then you have the top of the lift, the pause at that part. And with regard to the pause, when you are pausing at the bottom of the lift, this is going to be a disadvantageous position. When you are pausing at the top of a lift, this is going to be an advantageous position. So for example, in a squat, if you pause at the bottom of a squat, that's going to be disadvantageous, because what happens is during the eccentric motion, your muscle tendon is going to store elastic energy in the muscle tendon. And you could think of that as a spring coil. It is going to allow you to shoot back up when you are doing the concentric movement. Now, when you slow down the eccentric, you lose some of that elastic energy that's stored in the muscle tendon. So you have to work harder to be able to lift that weight. The same thing is true with the pause. If you pause at the bottom, if you pause for 1 second, that 1 second pause is going to eliminate roughly 50% of the elastic energy stored in the muscle tendon. If you pause for 2 seconds, a 2-second pause is going to eliminate roughly 80% of the elastic energy that is stored in the muscle tendon. And if you pause for 4 or more seconds, you virtually eliminate 100% of the elastic energy that is stored in the muscle tendon. One quick example that you could do is take your bench press weight, whatever weight you would normally do, or do this for any exercise whatsoever. If you are doing the bench press, lower it to your chest, press it. See how easy that feels. Then pick that exact same weight, put it on your chest, rest there, just let it sit there, and try and push it from a dead position. You are going to see that it is much harder. This is also why a deadlift is so hard, because you are lifting it from a dead start. If you were to start a deadlift from the top position and then tap it to the floor and come right back up, it would be much easier than starting from the bottom position. So by focusing on eccentric training and incorporating pauses, this is going to be of great benefit if it is your goal to increase your strength. Now, one of the other common criticisms that I see is that the intensity is too vague. He only says light, moderate, hard, or all out with no explanation. And the truth is, he explains this in the training plan instructions. I have it right over here. I'm going to show you the light and moderate, but for the light, he basically says, this is a warm-up set with light resistance for 20 reps to get your body used to the exercise and prevent injury. It should feel like you could do 30 or more total reps if you wanted to. Remember, this is a warm-up set, not a working set. You're doing this to get your muscles ready for the main effort of the day. So right over there, he explains exactly what a light set is and what exactly a moderate set is. So if you are saying that there is no explanation of the intensity, it's not that there's no explanation, it's that you skipped ahead to the wrong section and you didn't actually read the entire book. Because if you read it, you would have seen that it was right there. Another common criticism that I see is that all the programs are pretty basic. And he mentions this too as well. He says, advanced techniques. Most likely, if you have this book, you have watched a few of my videos and heard me talking about going beyond failure on all-out sets. And yes, in a hard set, I often do push beyond failure. I might also do certain advanced techniques like drop sets, forced reps, or partials. Those are advanced techniques and are not for beginners. If you are a beginner, do not go beyond failure. This is something that I agree with 100%. If you are a beginner, you can do perfectly fine just doing straight sets, circuits, or even doing supersets. You don't need to do advanced methods like drop sets, cluster sets, pyramid sets, ascending sets, descending sets, and all those different types of methods. If you are just doing basic linear periodization as a beginner and doing straight sets or even doing supersets for time efficiency, you can get great results on that. Basically, if you've been training for under 2 years, then you are still considered either a beginner or intermediate. So if you are training properly for less than 2 years, then you don't need to do all of these advanced methods because you can get great results by sticking to a simple program. Now, another common criticism is going to be that there is no explanation with regard to progressing the weights. This is also addressed. With regard to progression, it says conservative progression for hard and all-out sets. Week 1, 6 to 10 reps in the tank. Week 2, 5. Week 3, 3 to 4. Week 4, 2 to 3. 1 month plus 1 to 2 reps. 2 months, go all out for real. So right there, it's laid out for you depending on where exactly you are in the training program, how many reps you should leave in the tank. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward, pretty self-explanatory. Another common criticism that I see is with regard to stretching and how there's no information with regard to stretching. This is something that I agree with. I'm going to basically read the entire stretching section. This is everything that there is about stretching in the book. It's a great idea to stretch after your workouts or cardio session to remain flexible. Remember, save the stretching for end of your training. Don't stretch a cold muscle. Stretching can, in fact, make you weaker if done before training. A warm muscle at the end of training will stretch a lot further and be much more effective in your effort to increase flexibility compared to stretching at the beginning of a workout. Now, the stretching section, there's not a whole lot of information, but everything that he says is 100% spot on. Ideally, you want to stretch at the end of your training session, not before. One of the reasons that he just stated. It is going to make you weaker. The point that I brought up earlier about storing elastic energy in your muscle tendon, well, the more stiff the tendon, the more elastic energy you can store. So if you stretch, what's going to happen is you're going to lose some of that tension and some of the elastic energy in the muscle tendon, and it is going to make you weaker. In fact, multiple studies have shown that if you stretch prior to strength training, you are going to decrease your power output, you're going to decrease your strength, and also your balance and coordination are going to decrease. So if you are training for something and you need strength, power, balance, coordination, you should not be stretching prior to your workout. Are there times where stretching prior to your workout is beneficial? Yes, but for most people, you should not stretch before. If you are stretching to, let's say, improve range of motion, if you lack mobility in your shoulders to be able to do a shoulder press, let's say you lack external rotation, then stretching out those muscles to be able to get into full external rotation and do the exercise may be of benefit. But aside from that, if you are stretching just for the sake of stretching because you think it's something that you need to do in order to get warmed up, don't bother stretching before your workout. It's going to be much more effective and efficient at the end of your workout, so save it for the end. Another common criticism is that there are no injury prevention tips, and he actually has a section on injury prevention. Right here, he says, do not do exercises that cause pain. I know I said this in the injury avoidance section, but I need to reiterate that though. Do not do exercises that cause pain. There are a million other options for you to choose from. This is another thing that I agree with 100%. This is one of the reasons why I don't bench. When I bench, I get problems in my left shoulder. So with regard to benching, I might do it once a year, once every couple years, but it's generally not something that I do in my training program. One of the reasons is there are millions of pressing exercises that I can do, and something like a dumbbell press does not aggravate my shoulder. So why would I do a bench press that's going to aggravate my shoulder when I could do a dumbbell press and have no pain whatsoever? It makes absolutely zero sense. So if you find that you are doing exercises and they are causing you pain, there are modifications and there are other exercises that you can do that will target the same muscles. So if an exercise is causing you pain, do not do it if you think that you need to do it for a specific reason, because there are plenty of exercises that you can do. And then Greg also talks about the best time to train, and what he says is with regard to best time of day to lift weights. The best time to train is the time that you want to train. The next best time to train is the time you can train and perform well, which is usually early or late afternoon, after you have already eaten a few meals. Now this I agree and disagree with. It really depends on what exactly your goal is. Is your goal to look better, feel better, or perform better? Because based off of what your goal is, that is going to dictate when the best time to train is going to be. If it is your goal to look better, so you either want to lose fat or build muscle, then whatever time you enjoy training and whatever time is going to motivate you to go to the gym, that is the time that you want to train at. Just be consistent with it. If it is your goal to feel better, then ideally you would want to train later on in the day for a few reasons. Let's say you have issues with joint pain. Well, the synovial fluid, which is the fluid that helps to lubricate your joints, it takes about 3 hours for that to fully build up in the joint. So if you do have joint pain, then waiting at least 3 hours after you wake up is going to be beneficial, because your joints are going to feel a lot better and a lot warmer than if you train first thing in the morning right when you wake up. So if it is your goal to feel better, one, you either would want to wait until that synovial fluid builds up, which is about 3 hours, or two, you would want to train when you are feeling your best. Everybody is going to have different times of the day when they feel their best. For me, I feel really good later on in the day, so that is why I train later in the day. I'm not a fan of training early in the morning, but that's because when I train mostly for strength, and first thing in the morning, my joints are going to be a little bit more stiff. So if I want to lift the most amount of weight possible, I need to save it for the end of the day when my joints are feeling their best. And then lastly, it's going to be, what if your goal is to perform better? If your goal is to perform better, pretty much whenever you are your most energetic and whenever you are able to perform at your best, that would want to be the time that you would want to train train at. So if you find that your performance is really great first thing in the morning, train first thing in the morning. If you find that your performance suffers first thing in the morning, then do not train first thing in the morning, train later on in the evening. Basically, whenever you feel your best, whenever your performance is at its best, that's when you want to train if your goal is to optimize performance. And then lastly, there's also an exercise library. Now this part right over here, this is worth the cost of the book alone. I'm a big fan of this part, and one of the reasons why I am a big fan is because he gives several different variations for each of the exercises. Pretty much, if you're not familiar with different exercises, if a lot of training books, they will just give you squat and then that's it. Whereas every single exercise, you can have limitless variations as long as you are creative and you know how to progress or regress an exercise. So right over here, let's take a look at the squat exercises. He gives multiple versions of the squat. There's barbell back squat, there's high bar, mid bar, low bar, safety bar squat, barbell front squat, any squat machine, hack squat, V squat, belt squat, Smith machine squat with feet forward, leg press, goblet squat, sumo squat, wide stance, belt squat. So right over there, that is 13 different squat variations. And if you do a 4-week training program, there are going to be 13 4-week training blocks over the course of a year. So 13 squat exercises, you could literally do 1 year's worth of squat exercises without ever having done the same squat twice. So that alone is worth the $200 of the book, in my opinion. And now next, we're going to start to get into the actual workouts. This is another criticism that I had seen pretty heavily, and the criticism was that it's all circuit training. And the truth is, it's more than just circuit training. And if you're a beginner, pretty much straight sets, supersets, and circuits are going to be good enough. You don't need to go into complex methods. But if we take a look at moderate template number 1, it's a 2-day split, 60 minutes long hypertrophy routine. Day 1, part 1 is straight sets. Day 1, part 2 is circuits. Day 2, part 1 is straight sets. Day 2, part 2 is supersets. Day 2, part 3 is supersets and trisets. So right over there, we have straight sets, supersets, trisets, and then we also have circuits. That's 4 different types of training methods, so it's not just circuit training. Now let's take a look at moderate template number 2. 2-day split, 60 minutes, strength. Day 1, part 1, straight sets. Day 1, part 2, circuits. Day 1, part 3, supersets. Day 2, part 1, straight sets. Day 2, part 2, supersets. Day 2, part 3, supersets. So again, we have straight sets, circuits, supersets. That's 3 different types of set methods within that one program. So there's much more than just circuits in this particular training program. So if one of the reasons why you are deterred for buying this book is that you think that it is only circuit training, you don't need to worry about that because it's not just circuit training. There are many different methods utilized in this book. And now I want to just share my overall thoughts of the actual training book. With regard to the pros, I'm going to list the pros first. I'm going to actually put the price in the pros column. One of the reasons why I'm listing price as a pro is because if you are spending $200 on a book, the chance that you are actually going to use that book and put it to good use is very, very high. Whereas if it was a $5 book, then you wouldn't really be incentivized to use the information because $5, if you waste $5, who cares? But if you waste $200, that's a lot of money to waste. And I'm going to use some examples of my clients. Whenever in the past I had a client that was coming to me and they were paying out of pocket, they were the most adherent clients I ever had. Whereas whenever I had physiotherapy patients, because their training was covered through their benefit program and they didn't have to pay out of pocket, oftentimes those were the least compliant clients I ever had in my life, which is why I was never a huge fan of taking on a lot of physiotherapy patients because most of them did not do the work that I wanted and they were very, very entitled. Whereas the people that spent the money, the more money the people spent, the more they adhered to the program. So the fact that this book is $200, it may be a deterrent, but one of the pros is that if you spend the money, the chances are you are actually going to use that book. And not only are you going to use it, but you're probably going to learn more. If it was $5, you might have just skipped ahead right to the program section. But for $200, you're probably going to be more likely to read it cover to cover. So that is why the money is going to be a pro for me. Another thing with regard to the money and whether or not it is going to be a pro or con is what do you value more, your time or your money? If you are the type of person who values your time more than money, then yes, it is absolutely going to be worth the money because if you value your time, you are going to save a lot of time by purchasing this book because if you don't buy this book, you don't know what you're going to be getting from other books. I'm going to use myself as an example. When I was younger, I've been researching on exercise science and nutrition science for over 2 decades. And during the first part of my career, I was spending a lot of money on books and I just picked up any book that I could find. And I wasted a lot of time because a lot of those books were just not very good. I have over 300 training books. And out of those 300 books, maybe 50 of them are really, really good quality. And then the other 250 are just generic information. So So by reading all that generic information, I wasted a lot of my time. Whereas now I am willing to spend way more money. And $200 really isn't that much. I have actually spent over $650 American on multiple books. And the reason I spent the money was because I knew who the author was and I knew the information was very, very good. So if you know who Coach Greg is and you know what his information is like and you think it's going to be of benefit, then spend the money. If you don't think his information is good and you watch him more for the entertainment value, then don't spend it, because obviously if you don't find his content good, then why spend $200 on the book? But if you found his information to be useful, then that right there is reason enough to spend the money. Another thing that I really like, this is a huge pro, is how the programs are easily customizable. As I stated with the whole squat scenario, he has 13 different versions of squats. So because there are so many different versions of squats, you could pretty much do limitless programs with this book. You can do a different squat variation on every single program. There are 12 different programs and 13 different squats. So that's basically going to give you 12 years worth of workouts, because again, there are 13 4-week blocks in a year. So because there are 13 4-week blocks, if he has 13 squat variations, 12 times 13 is equal to 12 years worth of training programs. So because of all of the variation and all of the different programs, this one book could theoretically last you for 12 years and you'll never do the same workout twice. Now, with regard to the cons, one of the cons is going to be the price, and that is because it is a lot of money. $200 for an ebook is quite a bit, but again, if you are the type of person where you are going to actually read the book cover to cover and use all of that information and use it to build further programs in the future, it's worth it. If you're the type of person where you are just looking for a program and you do not even really care about all the other information, then I would put the price as a con, because you're not going to make full utilization of the book that you have. And now the last thing that I would like to discuss is who should buy the book and who should not buy the book. Well, with regard to who should buy the book, if you are a beginner or intermediate lifter, so you've been training for less than 2 years consistently and properly, then this book is for you. It would definitely be worth buying it. Another thing is people who are trying to lose fat. If you are trying to lose fat and you don't really know how to write a program, then there are 12 different programs and you could customize each of them and just go on forever. So you're going to have at least a year's worth of programs if you stick to the ones that are given. So if you're trying to lose fat, it's definitely going to be worth it. Also, if you are trying to build muscle, there are several hypertrophy training programs in here and also some strength building ones. So if it is your goal to build some muscle, it's definitely going to be accomplished if you follow all the principles in this book. And then lastly, if you do not want to spend the time to learn how to design programs, then absolutely buy this book, because it gives you the programs right there for you and you will learn a little bit. You're not going to learn a ton of program design, but it's going to be enough that you can use this information to build further programs in the future. Now, who should not buy this book? Well, advanced lifters, that's going to be the first thing. If you are an advanced lifter, so you've been training for more than 2 years consistently and you've been training properly for those 2 years, then I don't know how much benefit this book is going to be to you. Another thing is people with musculoskeletal dysfunction. If you have issues with postural dysfunction, joint pain, anything like that, then ideally you would want to be assessed properly and have a program customized for you to address your postural dysfunction or your musculoskeletal dysfunction. You wouldn't want to just do some random generic book. So if you do have musculoskeletal dysfunction, then I would not recommend using this book. You can use it later on once you've corrected those issues, but for right now, get assessed properly, get a customized program for you. Next, athletes. If you are an athlete who is trying to improve your performance, this is more for fat loss, building some muscle, and even increasing your strength a little bit. But if you are training for a particular sport, especially if you are at the professional level, you definitely would not want to buy this book. You would want something more customized for you that is going to directly correlate to your sport. Because if you just do a regular training program, it's not really going to be beneficial. Remember, SAID principle, specific adaptation to imposed demand. You want to be able to mimic the movements that you are doing in your sport. And this particular book, it's more for people that are interested in either building a little bit of muscle, losing some fat, and increasing their strength a little bit, but it's not really geared for athletes. So I would not recommend it for athletes. And then lastly, if you are somebody who wants to learn how to write a program, I would not really recommend this book because there's not a whole lot of program design info in it. However, if you do want to spend the time to learn how to write a program, I'm going to include a link right up over here to my program design lecture series. In that, there are over 6 hours worth of program design lectures, and it is broken down into 20 separate videos. The first 10 I filmed last year, and they're much shorter. They're anywhere from 3 to 15 minutes long, and then the last 10, they're much longer. The videos are roughly 13 minutes all the way to 1 hour. So if you do want to learn how to write a program and you don't mind spending over 6 hours of your time learning how to write a program, then go ahead and check out that playlist. It also includes 3 1-year program templates. I have a 1-year beginner program template where I use linear periodization. Linear periodization, in a nutshell, its intensity goes up as the repetitions go down. Then the intermediate, which is the second program, that's a 1-year intermediate program, and I use undulating periodization. With regard to undulating periodization, in a nutshell, you have periods of low intensity followed by periods of high intensity. Your low intensity is called your accumulation phase, and then your high intensity is called your intensification phase. So that's all in the intermediate program. And then lastly, the third program is the advanced program. If you are in the advanced program, this is where I go into more advanced methods. Things like drop sets, pyramid sets, descending sets, ascending sets, and all those different methods that I mentioned a little bit earlier. So if you do want to learn how to design a program, go ahead and check out that. But if you're not really interested in learning how to write a program, you just want a bunch of programs that you could actually utilize yourself right now today in the gym, then definitely I would recommend picking up Harder Than Last Time, because it is going to give you multiple programs that you could follow for years on end. But that's pretty much it for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to smash that like button so I know to make more of these types of videos in the future. And if you're either new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, as I will be uploading new videos every single day. That's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you again tomorrow.